story of his fourth grade.
Oh, wow.
When he was in fourth grade. Let me switch it up. When Bradley was teaching his countdown,
Yeah.
first couple of times, when he started, bruh. Yeah, check us back out in 15 minutes.
Right. We're going to be counting
Just
down
want
for
to catch our audience. Make sure everybody tunes in the next 15 minutes. Yeah, let me change up my shirt here. I'll be back. Nice to meet you. Dude, you're so crazy. Oh, brother Miguel, what's cooking, brother? How are you, sir? All right, the show normally starts at 8:05, so want to catch people going in. Restream at least is bringing in people from Facebook. That's good. Nice. Yeah, that's good. Normally I don't know their names. This doesn't show up. Carmen! Pastor Carmen. That's my young Jedi there. Mentoring her for lives and YouTube and things of that nature.
Awesome.
That's my cousin-in-law over in the Philippines watching us.
Oh, sweet.
Bless you. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that. Pastor Noble, you're gonna crush it today, man.
Is this song your Facebook? Which Facebook is this on?
Say that one more time.
Which Facebook is this on?
Oh, this is on LJA Ministries. I'm also live on YouTube. LJA Ministries.
That's what I meant. I
channel.
meant to LJA.
So we're there also. Let me share the live from my YouTube site. Keep spelling bivocational with I'm all like messing it up.
Oh. 1 second difference between Facebook and YouTube.
June is amazing. That's my brother over there in Hawaii. What's that?
Is that Doc's brother?
Yeah, that's Doc's brother.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get grilled for my 15-minute countdown for sure.
Yeah, when I first started live streaming for Sundays, I was doing 15 minutes, and I'd see people click on, and then after about 10 minutes, click off. So I had to shorten it down.
Yeah, I think for me, for the 15 minutes, it actually normally just go on 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I found myself, like when the countdown is going, I'm scrolling through. I'm like, oh, the show is gonna start. I got 15 minutes to get ready, 5 minutes to settle down, whatever it is. Sometimes people catch it, and they're like 5 minutes in, and they feel rushed and just don't join. This way, people see it, and they're like, all right, let me settle down. Whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna catch this show, or I'm gonna catch this live.
That makes sense.
June, you are correct, brother. So Carmen, that's what's up. Man, I need more Carmens in my life right here. No, June. This is actually that'd be actually cool, but unpacking is a no judgment, just pretty much my guest just unpacks whatever thoughts and ideas they have. Not lem drop, so this is not where I would speak or I would share my thoughts. My position is to just ask questions. Yeah, and I'm taking notes. So actually, if my guests drop a lem drop, then I'm gonna steal it and say it's mine. You know what they say, right? You know what they say, the first time you quote somebody, the second time you say, I heard somebody, the third time you said, the Lord told me.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. And the music is not bad. This is so known in my house. My son does this song. Dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I need to record him doing that. That's right. It's Lem Fresh. Once I say it. And nobody gets credit. Nobody said, oh, I heard Gary V say that. No, you well said it. I was a lem drop before Gary B said it. All right, here we go. Now the real countdown's coming in. Let's switch it up. Let them look up my mug for a minute. There you go. So this countdown animation has 4 elements. I got like four overlays happening right now. Actually I have 5. Because that ring thing there that's happening is another overlay. So I've actually shared it. So for anybody that wants this overlay, it's actually I share it with people and just ask for a blessing. And the people have blessed me with. I have like the transition pack. I have these animations available for download, and the keynote file, so you people can change them if you want to.
Change the colors up and stuff.
Nice. That's different because everything, like LSP was doing the circular countdowns. So I'm like, let me just something different,
Yeah, I'm running a circular one now. I've been looking to do something different.
I have another one here actually. Before I bug it out. What's up, everybody? All right, we're getting into it. Lemon bar. We only order lemonade here, bro. And no hard lemonade either. All right. Do you have a website, Pastor Noble?
It's in development right now. So now.
Yeah. All right.
Just met with my marketing person today for a while.
Yeah?
Yeah. Trading off a little business coaching for some marketing coaching.
There you go. I have a ton of websites. I have websites, but it's just sitting there waiting for me to do something for it. I got a marriage website. I got a blog. I got the LJA Ministries. I really need a virtual assistant for Shizzle, as Snoop would say. Because of the amount of stuff that's just in my brain that I'm trying to bring out to the world. It's just too much sometimes.
The girl that I'm working with,
hold on. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining me this Monday night. We are live from New York City. I'll try to do that Saturday Night Live vibe where they were like, live from New York City. It's Unpacking. Anyway, this is Lemuel Ayutud. I'm your host for this Unpacking session where we unpack thoughts, concept, ideas, and interesting topics. That I find interesting anyway, and I hope you do the same. And tonight we are unpacking ministry, marketplace ministries, and how that may impact a pastor, a leader in the church, and things of that nature. So for those of you that may not be familiar with me, I am a pastor of a church here in New York City. I lead ministries here, and I have my blog and my website at ljaministries.com. But anyway, welcome, and we'll be right back with my guest in 30 seconds. Welcome again, everybody. It's Lemuel this Monday night, and I have with me my new friend from the internet, Pastor Noble Bowman. He is here. We met online through this eCamp community that you guys are probably tired of me talking about anyway, but it is an incredible spot for all of us that are actually trying to express our message through the internet and using softwares the way I'm using them now here. This is eCamp Live. Actually, we're using the software. So welcome, Noble. How are you doing this evening, man? Thank you for hopping in with me.
Dude, I am so excited to be here to hang out with you. I was just telling you a while ago before we came on, I had a chance to start checking you out a little bit ago. Saw you talk about some marriage stuff, just been watching you, and I've been seeing you grow over these last couple months before we even got a chance to meet. But man, I'm excited to be here tonight and talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is how can we be in the marketplace in the world where we live? How can we be missionaries?
Well, can you just share a little bit how long you've been in the ministry, what you're doing currently, what prompted you to hop on with me and things of that nature?
So my dad was a pastor, so I grew up going to church. When your dad's a pastor, you're on staff, especially if it's a small church, you're on staff from day one. And so I played the drums in church. I did all the things that you're supposed to do. And when I got old enough, I talked my dad into paying me to be the church cleaner instead of hiring somebody else. So I've been around church most of my life. Went off to Bible college for a little while, and that was a good experience. And somewhere in there, I knew that I was called to give my life to God and serving Him, but I also had this passion to be involved in ministry. I mean, in the marketplace and doing business. At one point, I was a pre-law major in college, and that's what I thought I was going to do. But ultimately, I've stepped through many hoops and been through many places of service. But in every one of those, I've done my best to be a missionary in the space that God has me. So I've gone, I did campus ministry on college campuses for a while, which is where the whole idea of ministry marketplace really became a core for me. I had a habit. I'd drive students around campus and I'd point to the campus and say, "What's that?" They'd go, "College." I was like, "No, it's a mission field, baby. It's a mission field." And I kind of adapted that in everything. I drive past a hospital. "What's that?" "It's not a hospital. It's a mission field." Drive past a grocery store. "That's not a grocery store. That's a mission field." Because everywhere we go is a place where we can go and be people that are representing Christ.
Fantastic, man. I love that idea. Before we hop into it, because you're already beginning, so let's just do some what I would call housekeeping. This show is not to debate ideas and thoughts and topics. It's for us to really examine and for us to unpack. And the common lingo now, unpack, means just to define certain things. So before we get into what you just said, which I love, can you unpack to us what marketplace ministry means to you?
Yeah. So one of my core values is to be an ambassador. And the passage of scripture in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul starts talking about us being reconciled to Christ. And he talks about such an amazing gift that is. And then one line in there, he says, "And we are therefore Christ ambassadors." And that idea of being an ambassador is what really got inside of me. So for me, A marketplace ministry, a marketplace missionary is somebody that realizes that their life isn't a silo. I'm not a different Noble Bowman on Sunday than I am on Monday through Saturday. And if I happen to be working in, a coffee shop, if I happen to be working in wherever, I'm a minister. I'm an ambassador. I'm a representative of Christ on Sunday, just like I am through the rest of the week. And if we can embrace that lifestyle and that mentality and not silo our lives into Sunday and the rest of me, it changes us. I heard a Christian comedian say one day that he said a lot of Christians have this idea that, Sunday is a God moment. And so Saturday they go out and party, and Sunday they go to church. Then on Monday they're back to their normal selves. And he called it booty God booty. They go out and live like crazy on Saturday. So it's booty God and then booty. And I think a lot of people just have this mentality that I'm going to be a different person on Sunday than I am the rest of the week. And whether we're in ministry and we've decided to be bivocational, or whether we're just somebody that has decided to become a Christ follower, man, we're his representatives every day, 24 hours a day.
Now, you mentioned a word that probably needs to be unpacked, but you're saying that silo ourselves. What do you mean by siloing yourself?
And that may be, I'm a business coach as well, so that's my weekly gig. So often we end up, our life is in these silos. So here's my church silo. And so I've got certain things in my life that fit in that part of me. And next to that
silo is in like the farm silo?
Yeah. I'm from
some
the
of us
South,
are from New York, so we have no idea.
I just got ready to say, I got to be a missionary now, man.
Sometimes people, you hear silo, people here in New York City, it's just, did you say silence? What's a silo, bro? So dude, can you just unpack, maybe define what a silo actually is?
So down here in the South and in farmland, a silo is where you store different crops. My grandfather was a chicken farmer, and he had a silo that kept all of his chicken feed, and then he had another silo that kept his cow feed, and another silo that kept his pig feed. And so the idea is that so often we put our life in one silo for one day.
I still don't know what a silo looks like.
Silo.
Can you explain to me the physical, so that we can understand?
A round thing. And
you got to help the city slicker, man.
Man, I may have to Google this and show you a picture real quick. So it's typically a round. You've probably seen, anytime you see a picture of a farm and a barn, typically there's some round colander looking thing next to it.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a silo.
That's a silo. Okay.
That's a silo. And out of the bottom of the silo, there's some way to get whatever in and out.
Now you're making sense.
So the idea is that we take, so a better word, maybe a more contextualized word for you northern folks would be, we end up.
A bodega.
Sure. You got to explain that for my friends down in the South. We don't know what you're talking about.
That's right.
So the idea is that we compartmentalize our life.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my Sunday compartment, and then I got my Monday through Saturday compartment, and they don't coincide. They don't live together too well. Because Sunday I show up to church dressed a certain way, and I talk a certain way, and we all know what it's like. We show up to church, and it's, how you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? Man, if I showed up to work on Monday and talked to my coworkers and called them brother and sister, they'd be like, what you have over the weekend is making you crazy. So that's kind of the thing, is being the same person that you are on Sunday the rest of the week. And if that means you gotta talk in a normal language on Sunday, just like you do through the rest of the week, maybe that's what we got to do. So that's kind of the mentality there of figuring out how to be the same representative 7 days a week.
Why is that important?
Because for so many of us, I remember when I was younger, my pastor would talk about, some people had their Sunday coat. And so they'd get up on Sunday and put their Sunday coat, and then they put that coat in the closet, and they didn't get back out till the next Sunday. So they were completely different people. Man, Sunday they were in there raising their hands and singing the songs and kneeling when they were told to kneel and all that kind of stuff. But through the rest of the week, they were completely different people. They talked different. They used language they wouldn't use on Sunday. had behaviors they wouldn't do on Sunday. And so they were different people. And I just don't think that inconsistency measures up to following the example of Christ. I mean, if anything, when he showed up on Sunday to the synagogue, he was messing up their normal routine rather than fitting into it. So, yeah,
to be consistent so that people can see you're living the life that you say you're
right.
living. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. For me, I mentioned a while ago this idea of ambassador, and I actually have a tattoo on my arm, and I put it on my right arm so that when I shake somebody's hand, it's what I see. I see it every time I do. And I went as far back to Aramaic and got the word Christ ambassador translated into Aramaic because I just wanted something to look different. But every time I shake somebody's hand, I'm reminded that I am an ambassador of Christ. And I did a little study on that word ambassador, and it's pretty cool. An ambassador is a privileged messenger. That's what ambassador is. You think about, we have ambassadors to Britain. That person is a privileged messenger. It even comes with things like diplomatic immunity. Kind of a story I use to illustrate it sometimes. When I worked on the college campus, one day I'd gotten a pretty good relationship with the president of our university. And during back to school, when all the students were moving back to our college, I would go, instead of some of the campus ministries or organizations, they would go help people haul their luggage up to the top of the dorm. So they're carrying luggage 5, 6, 7, 8 floors. Well, they say work smarter. So I decided to figure out a way to work smarter. So I went and rented golf carts, and I would put all my students driving golf carts around campus, and we would help people bring their luggage from their cars to the dorm so that those other people could carry them up to the top of the stairs. Well, one day the president saw me, and he goes, "Hey, could you give me a ride back over the admin building?" So I said, "Sure." So he jumps in my golf cart. And we had these rules. We were supposed to stay on the sidewalks or on the main roads. And it was going to take me a while to get to the admin building because I had to stay on the sidewalk. And the president said, "Just cut through there." I said, "No, sir, I'll get in trouble." He said, "You're with the president." I was like, "Oh, okay. All right." So we took off, and I was cutting through the grass, and one of the police officers that I had bumped into a time or two saw me cutting across there, and he stood out and put his hand up like, "Stop." And then he realized the president was with me, and his hand went, "Stop. Okay, go ahead." All of a sudden, I had become a privileged carrier, right? I could go places I couldn't go before. So I went back to the superintendent's or the president's office. He goes, "Hey, would you mind running a package for me back across campus to one of the dorms?" I said, "Sure." Well, we had laughed about Officer Joey, who had stepped out, and I told him that Officer Joey gave me a bad time. And we laughed about it. And I said, "Hey, can I have permission to go back the same way I came?" He said, "Sure." So I got his package he wanted to deliver, and I took back across campus. I'll be honest with you, this time I was cutting through the edges of the flower beds, and I was just doing what I could. And man, here Officer Joey saw me coming, and this time he put his hand up, and he could tell the president wasn't with me. And he put his hand up to stop me, and he was ready to give me the riot act. And I held up my little package. I said, "I'm delivering a message for the president." He said, "All right, go ahead." You see, I had just become a privileged messenger, an ambassador that allowed me to go places I couldn't go before. And when we accept the privilege of being an ambassador for God, not just on Sundays, but every day, we become privileged messengers.
That's so good.
And there's some rights, but there's some responsibilities that come with that. And that's when I think about being a marketplace missionary.
Yeah, I was going to just go there.
I think about that every day I get to go to whatever place God has put me. I told you before we got on here, for a while, I worked for this company, an international coffee shop, and I was designing franchises for this coffee company all over the world. The owner of this company loved live music. So he asked me to design a live music venue. Well, in our town, a live music venue is not going to work unless there's a bar. Well, this building, this room I was designing as a live music venue, I was also designing because that's where our church met. So I had the opportunity to design the live music venue with a few little tweaks that would make it work for our church. But then also I had to put a bar in the back. And so I got that design and we built it out. And when we got ready to launch it, he couldn't find anybody to run the bar. So he asked me if I'd run it. Now, some people might have trouble with that. And there's a lot of big conversation we can have around that. But for me, I had just been given an opportunity to be a privileged messenger and speak to some people that I would never, ever, ever get a chance to talk to.
Well, let me ask you if you can unpack a little bit more on that. I know in our circles, in church circles, at least in more stringent circles, I know there are other churches, cultural churches, that are a little bit more forgiving and allowing those kinds of things. But for the most part, the church culture looks at well, you were a pastor then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So most part for a lot of churches would look, or a lot of even ministers would look at a pastor tending a bar as anathema almost. What was the way, or how did you reconcile your place in where God called you versus a place that has a stigma, at least in Christendom, about secularism or worldliness or any of that nature?
So I grew up that way. I mean, I grew up in a teetotaler family. I don't know if you guys use that term up north, but I grew up where dude, we didn't go to a bar. We didn't even play with dice. I mean, we had one of those churches that you just didn't do those things. And somewhere along the line, and it's another whole conversation, but I have to say this to make that work. I got to a point where my faith was skidding just a little bit. And I remember one day having a conversation with God and saying, God, I don't like the way you look. And the reason I don't like the way you look is because I've let other people tell me what you look like. And I'm going to deconstruct this, and I'm going to ask you to reveal yourself to me. Show me who you are. And it was a journey. It was an experience. But in the middle of that, there's a lot of, we call them today, we talk about legalistic people and non-legalistic people. There were some things that I ended up, for me, feeling like was some man-made guidelines that encroached on Christianity. So I had already gotten to a place for me where I didn't feel like drinking alcohol was necessarily a sin. Now, I truly believe that being drunk with wine is a sin. And the scriptures kind of give us that guide, and that's another big conversation. But here's what I found. I would go in that bar, that live music venue, and I'd step behind the bar, and I would make somebody a Jack and Coke. And inevitably, they would pull their chair up to the bar, and we would have a conversation that I would have never had. And inevitably, they would talk about the building. And I would say, yeah, I designed this building. Oh, well, actually, I do a church in here on Sundays. What? You do a church in here on Sundays? Yeah. Dude, you're not like any pastor I've ever met. I'm like, well, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's where we are.
Well, I guess that, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Finish your thought.
And so for me, and one of my other favorite stories and things from the Bible that really reshaped my life was when Jesus called Levi. And he went and hung out at Levi's house with the people that the church people of that day could not even imagine that he was hanging out with those type of people. And when the Pharisees got upset about it, they came overheard it, and he spins around and says, look, I didn't come for those that are righteous. I came for those that are sick. Go and learn what this means. Out of you, I desire compassion rather than sacrifice.
Yeah,
I hear
so
a
I
question.
was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. The thought is that there are a lot of in the marketplace. Obviously, when you're talking about marketplace, you're not talking about just mingling with believers only. You know, you're talking about
Right.
people that do not know Jesus, people that are maybe, you know, agnostic, atheist, and you're dealing with that. How do you begin to manage the differences when it comes to marketplace interactions and continue to do the kind of work that you feel led to do, which is, as you mentioned, it's a mission field out there. And I guess the concept of the mission is what propels you to connect with people in a way that may not be your typical Sunday go-to meeting type of situation, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage the interactions and with folks that may not believe in Jesus, and
So
you still have to continue to maintain your integrity and your mission?
right. The only people that ever had trouble with me serving a Jack and Coke were the Christians. The non-Christians, the people I was talking with, they didn't have trouble with it. In fact, it created opportunities for conversations that was unbelievable. And it ended up being that those people would be like, you know what? I hadn't been to church in 20 years, but I think I might be able to check your church out. And so it was a challenge for me, but when I hear that passage of Jesus said, I came not for those that are righteous, but for those that are sick. And this is a whole conversation on church philosophy and theology, but most of my life, I felt like church was structured around the idea of feeding and taking care of the righteous. And while we talked a whole lot about trying to reach those that are sick, if reaching out to those that are sick got in the way of taking care of the righteous, we weren't going to do it. And so for me, it just became a philosophy of the way that I felt like I was called to be a person that hung out. I mean, dude, one time somebody said, you know, is he a drunkard? He's spending so much time with drunkards. Is he a drunkard? And I decided that I would rather people wonder whether I was that, because I was spending so much time trying to reach those people, than I just rather spend time with non-Christians than Christians most of the time.
Well, you know, as you were explaining certain things, what you were saying, you know, the thought in me really is that a lot of times when we go out to mission or when we meet secular people, there is this inclination, or at least a subconscious application of maybe the commission of Christ, right? Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believes and is baptized shall be saved. He that believes not shall be damned. And so that commission kind of, at least when I was growing up, every time you had a chance to tell somebody about Jesus, you're supposed to let them know about Christ. You know, you're supposed to kind of like, you know, kind of interrupt whatever it is that you're dealing with in business or in the marketplace and be like, look, I got to tell you about Jesus before we continue going. What do you say about that mindset? And have you ever dealt with it? And what did you do to respond to that thinking?
So when I was in college campus ministry, I had a partner, another ministry on campus, and the leader of that organization and I were pretty good friends. My approach was that I was going to go on campus and I was going to build relationships, because I feel like life change happens best in the context of a relationship. If I get to know somebody and they start trusting me, I earn the right, I earn the privilege, back to that word privilege, I earn the privilege of challenging their lifestyle, challenging their worldview. I earned the privilege of building that relationship that gives me that space to talk to them about their life and their faith. And I remember one day we were sitting at a volleyball game, and I was sitting next to this guy from this other ministry, and this young man that I had met came over and sat down and started talking to us. And this is a guy that I had been seeing, and I had been working and trying to build a relationship with him. But he came over and sat down and started talking to us. And literally within 3 or 4 minutes, my friend says, "Hey, I got a question for you. You mind if I ask you 6 questions about your faith real quick?" And that guy looked at me like, "Noble, what'd you sucker me into?" And my friend went ahead and asked us questions. And the young man that I was trying to reach out to, I bumped into him later, and he's like, "Dude, what was that all about?"
Yeah, it was
I
like
said,
an
"Man,
ambush.
I'm sorry." Right. "I'm sorry, man. That was never." Long story short, I ended up building a friendship with this guy. I ended up having the privilege of introducing him to Christ. But it didn't happen in 3 minutes. It happened in 3 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, this thought, like, again, I'm fairly, I work in, or used to work rather in like offices, not offices, but in healthcare settings. So I wasn't necessarily in a marketplace setting where I interacted with people to bring them goods and services and be able to exchange pricing. Now, as a professional photographer, it was a different story. Now I come in there and I'm not there for my faith. I'm not there for the exchange of my faith. I'm there to provide a service. And before I got to that place, it was very discomforting for me to come to a situation where I know there are unsaved people, and I'm not sharing my faith. I mean, what do you say to those people that have that kind of weight on them that they can't seem to function without pushing or without talking about that part of their lives before anything else?
I think that it's possible. I think it's best for us to live our lives in a way. And we've all been there in those moments where somebody will just go, "Dude, there's something different about you." I think it's possible to live our lives in a way that God and His Spirit seeps out of us to people around us. And I mean, I've been around people that in an hour, they've never said anything about being a person in faith, but I can tell they are. And I think that's possible. My wife is in healthcare. My wife is a pediatric physical therapist. And she had a patient that she was treating. Of course, it ended up being a long-term relationship, but she was treating this young girl who had spina bifida. She was treating her for months. And Megan got really sick. And like the Christmas before Megan passed away, we had gotten to know them, and my wife and I and some other people went over and took Christmas gifts to them and took a Christmas dinner to them. And my wife is totally she's not like me at all. she just lives her life as Kisa every day. She's a good, loving person. But just in the everyday lifestyle, that family knew that my wife was different. So when Megan got sick and passed away, through the conversations, my wife had told them that I was the minister. So this was when we had been married a very short time. My very first funeral that I ever performed, preached, whatever you call it, was for a little 4-year-old girl who died from spina bifida. Her family wasn't Christians at the time. But I did that funeral, and in the weeks and months after that, we cared for that family. They ended up coming to Christ. They ended up becoming leaders in their church. The husband ended up becoming a deacon at the church. And it all went back to my wife just living as an ambassador every day, as a physical therapist, living that life every day. And I don't think we have to wear "I love Jesus" bumper stickers on our cars, and I don't think we have to wear Christian T-shirts. I don't think we have to wear any of that stuff, because if we're truly following Jesus and doing our best to live like Him and love like Him, I think that people are gonna be able to tell. Because here's the thing: the Holy Spirit has the power to create moments that we don't even realize are moments. I mean, I I can walk away from a meeting and not realize anything happened. And weeks later, somebody will say, man, that day we met, you made an impact on my life. And I'm like, I don't know what I did. The Holy Spirit did it, right? And sometimes we feel like, well, I used to be this way. Sometimes we feel like we have to do the Holy Spirit's job. The Holy Spirit convicts. The Holy Spirit draws. All we have to do is lift up Jesus.
Well, let me pivot already a little bit, because we're talking about mission in the marketplace, and I think I like what you've been saying here. But let's go to the other M of the marketplace, where sometimes we as believers also get a little bit. There's a little bit of battle on the inside, and hopefully you can unpack it with me. That dealing with money, the pursuit of financial gain. How do you, as a marketplace believer and pastor, deal with that pursuit of finances and money?
Great question. And I'll be honest with you, that's something I struggle with. And I actually had a business coach that was a former pastor that was really the one that kind of helped set me straight on this. There's a biblical philosophy principle that says the workman is worthy of his hire. And when I was doing ministry and before I got into business coaching and helping people through their businesses, everything I gave away. I mean, I consulted businesses, I consulted organizations, I consulted leaders, and it was all, I just gave it away because that's what I did in ministry. And when I decided to make my occupation as a business coach, and an executive coach, that was a challenge for me to sit down to somebody and go, all right, well, my fee for this hour is blah. That was a hard conversation. And my coach had to sit me down. He's like, look, Noble, the workman is worthy of his hire. You've put the time, you put the effort, you studied, you are a great business coach. And you're cheating yourself, you're cheating your family, you're cheating everybody by not expecting to be paid for that. Now, the other side of that is greed. And that's where we have to.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, how do you deal with it? Because I know being around other business people, pricing is an issue altogether. It's not just based on a believer. It's not because you're a Christian that you have difficulty trying to price yourself. I believe this, at least from the business people that I've been around with, it is a difficult place for a businessman to actually self-evaluate and put out their value out there, or their worth. They know they have value, but they have not put a pricing structure on them. Right. I don't know if a believer or a Christian has a bigger issue on that, being that the pursuit of wealth and the pursuit of money has been really relegated to the works of the enemy. We have scriptures that are quoted as the love of money is the root of all evil, and so all of money has become, or has this evil paint on it that says, hey, as a business person, if you're in a job, you're getting paid $12, $30, $100 an hour. That's what you're getting paid for. But as a business owner, now you're going to go and say, well, I'm going to charge you $300 an hour. Go ahead. I know you were beginning to deal with that. You were beginning to unpack it. So continue.
I mean, that's a tough one. And what I always tell myself and what I tell anybody I'm interacting with is that two things. One, I've got somebody that's an accountability partner that I've asked to help me keep my heart in check. My tendency, just because it's the way I'm made and my personality, my tendency is I'm going to give everything away more than I'm going to get greedy with it. And I've always tried to live with this philosophy of I'm blessed. If I'm blessed, I'm blessed to be a blessing. So I'm a giver away. So my accountability partner has to hold me more to account of whether or not I'm taking care of my family. But on the other side of that, I've got a friend who has been very, very successful. He makes really, really good money. And he's got an accountability to help keep him in check. And they've just created this set of conversations that they have twice a year. And my friend, the big conversation comes down to God's blessing you, and we can celebrate that. But the way we're going to hold that in check is we're going to try to evaluate how generous you're being. Because if God blesses you to be a blessing, you better be generous. I had a really good friend who he was actually doing campus ministry for a while. And one day he came to me and he's like, man, I just feel like God's calling me to be bivocational and help do that. But on the other side of it, to get involved in some business. I was like, cool. So we were driving down the road and he gets a phone call and he's trying to buy a piece of property. And he says, he got a call and said, well, they didn't take my offer. He said, go ahead and offer 40. And if they don't get that, the most I'm going to go is 60. So he gets off the phone and I'm like, you buying an acre or two of land? He said, no, I'm thousands of acres. I said, so that 40 wasn't 1,000. He said, no, it was millions. Well, I just about climbed out the window of the car because I'm like, what the heck's going on? But here's the deal. This guy, Todd, became one of the largest givers I've ever seen. His goal was to give 50% of his profit to God. And ultimately, his heart was at some point to be to a point where he was given 75%. The ministry I was leading at that time on the college campus, he was given nearly $10,000 a month just to my ministry. And I was one of several. I know at one point he was given close to $65,000, $75,000 a month to ministry. And part of that came, he created accountability partners. The problem that he had is that so many ministries began to depend on him that when things got tight for him, he was carrying all that load. And what my friend Todd did, because he felt like so many people depended on him, and honestly, I realized I depended on Todd, not God. And so my friend Todd, because he felt this weight, knew that there was a deal that was this close to getting done, and all he had to do was get this guy to sign the document, and then this guy would sign it. Well, this guy was saying, I'm not going to sign it till the other guy signs it. So my friend signed it. He forged it. He went to prison for 4 years.
Wow.
Really, because he had a heart to give, and he learned some lessons. And so if somebody's greedy, the truth is, if somebody's struggling with greed, I think that's more of a heart condition than anything. Because I think if somebody has really found a place that and Christ is who he wants to be in their life, there's going to be a generosity that flows.
Is there ever, what would you say to somebody who's going into the marketplace and who's just been ministry minded, who felt the call from God to do ministry and mission work, like you're saying, and now they're dealing with that issue of kind of, in order for a business to grow, to expand, you need to pursue money. I mean, you need to pursue clientele, you need to pursue client. And so I'm going into this area now where the pursuit of money requires your time. And so now what do you do when it feels like you are pursuing more about your business than you are pursuing the work of God? Does that ever come into play? Did you ever get a challenge of that? Does it ever come to you in the middle of the night and we go, my God, I've been very busy doing this business and I haven't done a thing about the ministry?
Yeah, no, and that's a struggle, especially in a bivocational. There's actually a book I had pulled up that I was going to mention to you that the guy's name is Hugh Halter. He wrote a book called Bivo, a modern day guide for bivocational saints. And he talks about that in there, is finding that balance. And again, for me, it comes to having accountability in my life, having people that I've given permission. I know what my weaknesses are. I think we all do. Um, and so I've given people permission to speak into my life about my weaknesses. And when I start getting super busy with one thing, and I'm either not spending time with the ministry that I should. In fact, I had a meeting today at lunch with a couple that goes to my church, and part of that conversation was, my business is doing good? Am I keeping the balance? And I have given them permission to be people that challenge me with that. And so that, my wife is a challenge. She's the one that'll say, you're giving the business and the church quite a bit of time, but where's the family time? And so she's got permission to challenge me with that. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that as mature believers, we know where our weaknesses are. We know oftentimes where our strengths are. And we've got to have that upfront discipline to give somebody permission to check us.
You mentioned it several times, of an accountability partner having the right or the permission to check you. What does that look like when it comes to me calling somebody, or do I wait for somebody to come and say, hey, let me check you? Or do I actually look for somebody to come? Did you look for the accountability partners? And if you can unpack a little bit what that relationship may look like.
So it was actually when I was doing college campus ministry. I was working with college athletes, and I came across a book by, I can't think of the name of it. He was a Fellowship of Christian Athletes president at the time. And the book is called Character Counts. And in this book, he had 10 accountability questions that he recommended that college athletes and college students and whatever, that they create accountability partners and groups. And every week we met to ask these questions. Now, here's the problem, is that with some of these, they became very legalistic. But there was 10 questions, and I can recite most of them. Number one, have you had quality time with God and scriptures in the last week? Have you had any flirtatious, lustful, or tempting thoughts, or exposed yourself to any explicit material that would not glorify God? Have you taken care of your body through daily physical exercise, proper sleeping and eating habits? So the list all the way goes in. 9 major questions. And then number 10 was, have you lied to me on any of your answers today? I figured out pretty quick that I could lie on the early ones and just say yes on number 10, and I got out of accountability. But what that did is that taught me the importance of accountability. And so mentors and accountability. A friend of mine, Tim Elmore is his name. Tim runs an organization called Growing Leaders. He's written some books called Habitudes, Images that Shape Habits and Attitudes. Tim Elmore was one of John Maxwell's college pastor when John Maxwell was a pastor.
Wow.
And he was one of John Maxwell's ghostwriters early on. And Tim sat down and he shared with me that every year he picks 5 areas of his life that he needs either accountability or mentoring in. And he goes and finds 5 people and asks them to meet with him once a month. And he said, if they're mentors, he said, I will bring the questions and I'll buy your meal. I just want to ask you questions and let you mentor me. And every year he kind of rotates. I took that and adapted it a little bit, because I felt like for me to really let a mentor speak into my life, it needs to be a longer than a 1-year relationship. And the same thing with accountability. If I'm going to trust somebody with some of my deepest, darkest stuff, I'm not changing every year because I don't want that many people knowing my stuff, right? So I went and found a few people and just said, look, here's weaknesses that I have. And I know it.
Noble, how do you navigate those interrelationships? I mean, I know in the marketplace you have to talk to business people, and you have to be focused and sharp, and you have to know exactly what you're trying to present to somebody so that you look like a professional, so that you sound like you know what you're talking about.
Right.
But in these circles, I mean, there's a certain kind of like a certain identification as a business person to be straightforward and be I know what I'm doing. And then you come into the circles where you feel where you present yourself and submit yourself to people that really may not even make as much money as you. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. For me, it's really about, can I trust this person? In ministry, look, you and I both know we've seen enough ministers that have had moral failures, and that's been another big passion of mine. And almost every time I've talked to a minister that's had a moral failure, is they found themselves in a place of unhealthiness, but they didn't think there was anybody safe to talk to about it.
Yeah.
And so that unhealthiness just continued to grow, right? So I just decided I'm going to humble myself to somebody, and if I can trust them with my deepest, darkest secrets, I mean, give them permission to call me out. And you know what? I've got a different person that's my accountability partner when it comes to my marriage and my life than I do some of my church and business stuff.
Very interesting. Why do you do that?
Well, because the person that's in my marriage and life, we've been friends for a long, long, long time. And I'm his accountability partner too.
And do those people know what the other people that you're accountable for in business know?
Not always.
They're
not always. No.
Do they talk?
So here's one place where I think
do you allow them to talk?
Sometimes they don't even know each other. Sometimes they don't even know each other. You know, and it's been a while. I mean, I've been married 32, 33 years. And
congratulations.
I was telling you earlier on that 4 years into my marriage crashed and almost burned. And so there were several years there where that accountability partner was a guy that, man, we met regularly. And he was just like, because for me, when we came through counseling, I had to figure out how to be the husband my wife needed me to be. And so I told him, I said, here's what my counselor says I need to do. And here's what I know I need to do. And here's what my wife wants me to do. So hold me accountable to this. And, you know, sometimes it was just the fact that I knew come next Wednesday, I'm having lunch with this guy, that at least for a week I acted right, you know, but on the other side of the business, it's the same way. It's, you know, I've got some friends in ministry that hold me accountable to some things.
Well, we're talking about marketplace ministry, and it seems like at least a good weight of what we've been talking about tonight is really accountability and being responsible for somebody else. Is that part of the success in the marketplace? I mean, there's a lot of like ruthlessness that is normally presented in the marketplace, and that's probably why some believers feel that we shouldn't be in the marketplace because you know, to gain money you have to be ruthless, you have to be outgoing, and you have to shut things down, and you have to be demanding. And are those all true, or are there myths?
Here's what I got to say, and that's one reason I call it a mission field. Man, if we're not, as believers, if we're not in the marketplace, then who's telling the people in the marketplace about Jesus? If we're afraid to go there because we're afraid we're going to get wrapped up in greed, or we're afraid we're going to get wrapped up in sin, or we're afraid of that rubbing off on us, then, man, we need some help. Because if we are not the people that are missionaries into that place, then there's no light there, and it's just a place of darkness. And so we've got to be the ones that go into the light. Now, it's ruthless. You're right. I mean, I have one of my accountability partners. I have this tendency to defend certain people. I'm always for the little guy, and I'm always, you know, and if I see somebody being mistreated or whatever, I'm going to fight for that. And there's been a couple times in one of my previous jobs that, man, I went to bat and went to fighting, and it ended up being a fight. And so I had to go home, and on my way home, I had to call my accountability partner and say, dude, I lost it today. I said some things I shouldn't have said. I sure wasn't looking like an ambassador for Jesus today. I used some language I probably shouldn't have used. And he's able to talk me into a place of real, I knew when I called him what he was going to say, but I just needed to talk to somebody about it. But then he was able to help me get back in the headspace and to get my emotions back in check and to pray so that tomorrow I can go back into that workplace and I can go to that person that I didn't act right and apologize and set the record back straight. And so that has been, that's workability for me. I mean, I think that's where a lot of that comes in.
Yeah, because like thinking about now, just kind of like surveying my mind as you're speaking to me about all those myths and all those things that I grew up in challenging, because there was a point in time, obviously, I've been a pastor since I was 22 years old and poured out my life in there. And I've been bivocational since the get. But it's never
Yeah.
been a marketplace where I determined my worth. I pursued clients. It's always been, work that I have to just do and I get paid for it. So marketplace is a little different, is because I have to pursue clients. I have to do certain things in order for them to come and feel like I'm more valuable than my competition.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would like for you to, maybe, I don't know if you've dealt with it before, but I know I have, is the challenge of trying to persuade somebody something, or maybe a partnership that's kind of questionable, right? That's kind of verging on your faith. Is this beginning to, I mean, what do you say to those people that says, you know what, the marketplace is a little dangerous because you have to let go of some of the beliefs that you have. You have to be less Christian in order for you to wine and dine the customer and for you to get that. I mean, is that just something that you meet, or you just kind of set that standard already before you meet anybody?
Well, so that's a tough call. I worked for a company out of Philadelphia for a while, Cardone Industries, and Cardone was a automotive remanufacturer, and my job was to represent them to some of the biggest automotive resale companies, AutoZone and Pep Boys and O'Reilly's, and I represented them to those type of people. And prior to Cardone, which is a strongly faith-based Christian company, prior to them hiring all their own salespeople, they had contractors. And so when we all first went out and started meeting with our clients and our customers, they were used to the contractors coming in and with big budgets and throwing money all over the place. And I remember one client in Memphis, Tennessee. I called him and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Memphis. I'd like to meet up with you." He goes, "All right, let's have steak tonight." "Okay, let's do that. Have a steak." And he said, "Meet me at Tiffany's on Mendenhall at 7:00. I was all right. So I go driving down Mendenhall and find Tiffany's Cabaret and Steakhouse.
Well, can you explain a little bit what a cabaret is?
It's a strip club.
All right. Make it plain, Pastor. Make it plain.
Right. So it was Tiffany's strips and steaks.
Great name.
So I was at a quandary. What am I going to do? I mean, this is one of my biggest customers, and he's already in there. I saw his truck. I knew he was in there. I tried to call his cell phone and he didn't answer, but he's in there and I know he's waiting for me. And so, I mean, we had a budget. We were given permission we could buy wine and all that, but they weren't going to be too happy with me having a strip club entrance on my corporate American Express card. And my wife wasn't going to be too happy. And besides that, it was going against some values that I had. So I went in. I called my wife. Said, "Baby, I got to go in and get Mr. And he's in the strip club." I said, "I'm going to call you in 10 minutes.
If I'm there longer than that, drag me out. Call the cops."
And so I went in and I went and found him and I said, "Hey, buddy, look, I know the reps you're used to have been used to this, but I just can't do this. It just goes against some values that I have. Could we meet for breakfast tomorrow?" "Oh man, I didn't think about that. I forgot you Cardone boys were Christians. Well, we'll just go over there to Longhorns across the street." He was fine. I didn't lose my customer, right? But I could have lost my integrity personally. I could have lost who I am.
Well, can you unpack a little bit about integrity in business, that in the marketplace?
Yeah. So for me, integrity is pretty simple. It's doing what's right all the time. Just doing what's right all the time. It's a character thing, and I know what's right, and it's easy at times if I'm bumped up against a situation to be tempted.
I mean, is
to
that
let this
possible
slide.
to do what's right all the time, especially in a marketplace where
I think so.
sometimes, I mean, you were working for a consultation company or a company that is providing these services, but what about if you have your own business and this account may flop or drop because of some of the things that you believe in?
But here's my thing: is if I truly believe that God is going to take care of me because I'm an integrous person and because I'm living to a set of values that I believe He's put into my life, then I mean, there are people now in my business now that I've said, I don't want to be your coach. I could probably help them, but I know too much of their story and their history. And the problems that they have are character problems, not just business problems. And I don't want to get entangled in that. And so what I have to believe is that God's going to honor that. And if that means I'm walking away from this business so that I can honor the values and the principles that I feel like God's put in my heart, then God's going to bless me for that. And that's where faith comes in. I'm going to be a person of integrity and try to do the right thing all the time, no matter what. Because once I start giving, I mean, the whole thing, you give them, you give an inch, you're going to give a mile. Once I know, because I've been there, I've made those mistakes. And once I start giving just a little bit to get this deal, my friend Todd that spent 4 years in prison, he gave a little bit because a big deal was on the line. And he ended up in prison because of it. God used him in prison. He turned prison into a marketplace for him, a missions place for him. But still, I mean, I don't want to do that. It's not where I want to spend my life. But to me, integrity is going to be the foundation. It's Tim Elmore, the guy I was talking about a while ago, and one of his habitudes, the very first habitude in his book, is the iceberg principle. And we've probably all heard that principle. And so the image of an iceberg, so the image of an iceberg is that you see ice on top of the water. They say that what we see on top of the water is only 20% of the size of the iceberg. So 80% of that iceberg is underneath water. And in Tim's analogy of the iceberg principle for him, the 20% above water, that's our gifts, our skills, and our talents. The 80% below water, that's our character. That's our integrity. That's all that stuff. And his analogy is, it was what was under the water that sunk the Titanic.
Well, let me bring in some of the. That's good, by the way. It's what's under the water that sunk the Titanic. That's good. But here's some comments that are coming in, and Pastor Russell Morrison, my friend over here, he says integrity and character matter to God.
Right.
I think with that statement, I would think that integrity and character also matters in business. No?
Oh yeah, it does. And I mean, every day you're going to bump into people that their definition of integrity is different than mine. What they're willing to call as integrity is different than mine. And then you're going to bump into people that just don't give a care about integrity. I mean, that's the people that mammon, money is their number one, and they're going to do whatever they got to. I mean, that's we see those people all in the world. But what I have found is that people, clients in all types of businesses, because I coach a donut company that's got 20 something franchises. I coach a machine shop. I coach a mechanics. Every one of them, as they work to hold themselves to a certain level of standards and expectancy and integrity, people are drawn to that. I mean, and I can name two big auto repair shops in town that have a reputation for not being integrous. And people will go pay more money at this other shop because these people have integrity than they will the place that doesn't have integrity. And so I think, yeah, it's important, but we see people all the time that aren't living by it. And the swing around of that comes back to that whole accountability thing. As a leader, as a business leader, as a business coach, what I find I do more than anything is act as an accountability partner. That's the truth. I've got 2 clients that literally, when they hired me, they said, I just want you to know, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just not doing it. And I need somebody to hold me accountable to do it. I'm like, all right, if you want to pay me $300, $500 a month to be your accountability partner, I'll do it. So it's because they realize and they know that they need that.
Well, June wants to give you props, just to say, good for you, man. Good for you. Integrity is a foundation. And Carmen
June.
says integrity equals transparency. Is that your definition of integrity also?
Yeah. So I think it's a big part of it, whether it's transparency with your accountability partners or whether it's transparency with your clients. People can see, they can read us, and if they can read enough in us to see that we're a person of integrity, then they've been able to see to that point.
Yeah, well, if in the marketplace, I guess we can do this segment for this last segment. If you can unpack a little bit the impact of your calling as a man of God, as a pastor of a church, how has that been helpful in making you successful in the marketplace that you're in right now?
Yeah. So success is
Wait, before you do that, we thought, I just like this comment by June. This is the only reason why I'm not rich.
That's a good one, Gene. I like that.
But I have to say, there are a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of believers or integrous people that are fairly wealthy. And they're very much people of integrity. So maybe June's just not doing some things right. That's a little shade. That's my brother over there. But let's talk about some of the principles that you believe in as a believer in Jesus, as a man of God. Some of the principles that you are anchored in that is actually helping you to produce the kind of marketplace successes that you are seeing right now.
Well, for me, it's a little bit of it's because I feel called first to be an ambassador for Christ, because I feel called first to be a representative of Him, and second to be in business. Success for me is weighed a little bit differently sometimes. I'm going to take sometimes a client that may not pay me as much if I know that I'm going to have an opportunity to have a spiritual impact on their life. And that's just me. That's not everybody, because you're right. I got some friends that are really wealthy, that are very integrous, and they're very generous. But because my success is rated first on how I'm doing as an ambassador of Christ, I'll take a client that's not, that's going to, where I could go over here and get a client for $500. If I've got a little window of time, this client's $500 a day or an hour. But I know he's got a great relationship with God, and I've got an opportunity to go over here and take this guy that I know he can only afford $300, but I know he's open, and I've got a chance to be an ambassador to him. I'm going here because, again, my trust, my foundation, the person that I look to for my source, as my source of life, is not the money, it's the mission. And I know that God's going to bless me if I take this guy over here and I coach him. But here's what's happened. I go start coaching this guy for $300, and I get a chance to share my faith with him, and I get a chance to change his worldview, and I get a chance to change all that, and his business grows. Then he's going to be to the point where he can pay me $500.
Well, two things, right? The things in my mind. The first thing is how disingenuous is it to pick up somebody who for a lesser client just to share them your faith? Is that disingenuous? How do you deal with that aspect? Like, hey, this guy's picking me up as a client just so that he can share his faith. Number one, that's number one.
Well,
number two, what do you say to people, because you're speaking a lot of money for an hour's rate? What do you say to those people that say, you know what, brother, that's a lot of money to be asking for people. You shouldn't be doing that. You're a pastor. What do you say to those two things? Very loaded, but this is unpacking anyway. So you go ahead and unpack those two things.
So, I'm never going to tell that person, hey, I took you as a client because I know I can share my faith with you. I'm never going to say that to them. But it goes into my decision making. I've got set fees that I'm going to charge per hour of coaching, but for me, it's not disingenuous, because my life mission is being a representative of Christ, being an ambassador. So that's my life mission. So I'm just fulfilling my mission. And I doubt, first of all, I'm not going to be the guy coming in thumping a Bible and beating him over the head with a Bible. I'm going to be coming in and loving this guy. I'm going to be coming in and trying to help him. And I doubt he's going to be like, dang, you gave me a discount because I didn't go to church. I just don't think he's going to have that mentality. Right. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is, charging $500 an hour. My rates run from $300 to $500 for an hour of coaching, and it's an hour and a half of coaching, plus unlimited phone and email support, plus throughout the month there's touch base calls and all that kind of stuff. My coaching, the work that goes into coaching the client doesn't just happen in that 1 hour. I mean, the prep that I'm putting into to coach that guy and to know where he is, and the resources that I'm digging through to help him have taken me 2 or 3 or 4 hours. And then through the course of the month, I'm going to be reaching out to him and touching base with him. So probably if I barrel it down to what time I'm spending on that client, I'm not making nowhere near that kind of money. But I've got friends. I literally have a friend that charges $1,000 an hour. And he gets paid every day. He's making a whole lot more money than I am. Of course, he's living in a different city where it's a whole different culture. But for me, that was one of the things I had to wrestle with. I really had to wrestle with, because I was used to giving everything away as a pastor. And here's a pet peeve. This is a pet peeve I'll throw out there when we're talking about marketplace missionary. One of my biggest pet peeves is Christians that think they're owed a discount from a Christian businessman because they're a Christian. That's a pet peeve. I think the workman's worthy of his hire. And so it's just something I even before I became a business coach, that's something my dad as a pastor, I went when we were doing some work on our church, and the guy at the place said he was going to give us a discount because it was a church. And my dad said, no. And he went back and said, don't charge us less. I didn't understand that. And I don't know if this is everybody's hard. It has to be your hard, fast rule. But when my dad went back and told that man no, the guy was like, you're the first Christian who's ever told me no. And he said, I respect that. Most Christians come in here because they know I'm a Christian businessman. They come in here expecting something. And you're the first one that's not ever done it. I don't know if it, I just know for me, it's something I try not to do.
Well, let's look at some of the comments that are coming in here. Carmen says, love this topic. It's so needed in these times. I know she's pivoting from working for clients, and now she's moving along and doing some incredible stuff. So I know God is doing some things for her. Chris is coming in and says, impact drives income. Creating more impact keeps the windows above you open. He also says, be the master to money and not let money Master
Come
You.
on.
And he also says, this conversation is perfectly connected to knowing your audience and ideal customer. Noble approach will always work for his client base. I think Carmen was saying about entitlement, about Christians coming in. And I mean, this is not just Christians. I guess it's family, friends, and people that you know are wanting discounts. And June,
So
go ahead.
I said that about Christians. I'm president of I don't know if you're familiar with the groups BNI, Business Network International. So
Yes.
I'm president of a local chapter, and I had a member call me the other day. He's like, dude, there's one member that has hit up every other member in the group and asked for a BNI discount. And that's just something that we've decided we don't do. And so it's not just in the church. I just mentioned that because we were talking about ministry marketplace.
Sure, of course.
There's a lot of people looking for that.
It is a good one where June said amen, and I'm not even religious. And I think he's talking about asking for discount and being.
Yeah.
And then Chris says, Scripture reminds us that a workman is due his hire. You should get paid for the quality and value of work one provides without discount. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Say that louder for the people in the back.
Well, is there a thought that you would like to share as we are putting this into a close a little bit?
Yeah.
Is there a some things that when you think about marketplace, and maybe I did not bring it to our attention here, but I'm gonna put my little theme song here, and you give us a little bit of your thought here.
Yeah. So I guess my final thought would be this. Realize, if we're a believer, realize that every day, not just Sundays, but every day, we have the opportunity to step into our privilege of being an ambassador. And it's, if we realize what that really means, the privilege of representing the King. I mean, you think about being the privilege of being an ambassador to a foreign country and representing a government, and how that would feel to be the ambassador to Germany or the ambassador to Canada or whatever. Dude, we get the chance to be the ambassador for the King of Kings and represent him to people that, I mean, the whole thing, the ambassador brings peace. We get to be peacemakers between God and those that he's pursuing. And so my biggest challenge is look at every place you go as a mission field, and you're the missionary that gets to go there and be an ambassador. That's my wrap.
And then the beautiful thing is, then you get paid also. How
Come on. That's right.
You make a living out of it. Well, Pastor Noble, thank you so much.
Go ahead. We mentioned the other day, Paul is the example of all examples. Paul was a tent maker. I mean, we look at Paul a lot of times and think he was a great apostle. He was just a great guy from the Bible. He was a tent maker. He worked to support his ministry habit. And that's the way I look at it sometimes. I'm working to support my ministry habit. So Paul is that example of somebody who worked and worked and worked so that he could go be a missionary.
Well, DJ Strick is coming in here, our good friend, incredible man.
DJ and Lim, two of my favorite vloggers.
Come on now. We can't pay you for that, so.
Come on.
Here's Pastor Albert, also my friend here from Staten Island, saying awesome. June coming in. I want to know what's in the cup. What cup are we talking about? Which cup we're talking about? The background cup.
I'm drinking some sweet tea right here.
Well, again, Pastor Noble, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight and unpacking these concepts with us. And we're going to go and wrap this up. And you say hang in there so we can do some post show conversation.
Appreciate it.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And just incredible conversation with Noble Bowman. Thank you. Oh, Noble, how can
yes, sir.
Before we close, how can people reach you should they want to reach you?
Man, you can hit me on Facebook. Noble Bowman. My business email is nbowman@talktonoble.com.
Talktonoble.com. All right. Say that one more time.
Bowman, NBOWMAN, @talktonoble.com.
So
And
talk
that's
to
the
Noble.
number 2. The number 2.
Oh, talk to number 2.
Talktonoble.com.
All right. Excellent. Well, everybody, thank you all for joining me again tonight. And yeah, man, that's unpacking session. I think we're getting close to our 30th session here. And thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Pastor Albert. Thank you, Pastor Russell. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, June. Thank you, DJ Strick. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for everybody hanging out with me tonight. And until next time, this is Lemuel Ietude. I am your host. I am a follower of Jesus and a lover of Jennifer. Until next time, y'all, thank you for joining us.